Hey game fans, we're back with another unboxing video. Today we're going to take a look at what's in the box for the Dixie Resurrection Posse set for Wild West Exodus. Now this is an Enlightened starter set, and it features all the models that you will need to play this particular faction for Wild West Exodus as a skirmish game. Let's flip this box over and see who's inside. Okay, now front and center we have Annabelle Hamilton, who will be the boss of the party, right here. Then we've got Bloody Bill Anderson. We've got Unger, who's a big giant Hulk. We've got Wendell Lee, who's going to be probably some sort of a crazy mad scientist. We've got Ross Mackay, who's some sort of a Confederate officer. And we have Donovan, who looks like he's a big giant monster wrangler. Let's crack this box open and see who's inside. Hang on just a second, folks. Okay, now inside the box we have our standard Wild West Exodus insert, which if you haven't seen one, there you go. Also featured heavily. The assembly guide for this model can be found here. If you want to join in the various places you can find stuff for Wild West Exodus, you can go to these locations on the interweb. And then if you're looking for the latest rules, you can always find the latest rule book at the link indicated. You can also find the latest unit cards for various factions and other things. So if you're not playing with the most recent cards, things might have changed between when you bought the models and when you sit down to play. So always make sure you have the most current versions. And this is Welcome to the Wild West Exodus. Now, also in the box, we've got a passel of cards, which we'll get into eventually. We've got the bases for our people. Now we've got one large base, and we've got a bunch of medium-sized bases for the various people that we have. The large bases for Unger, everybody else goes on the regular-sized ones. And let's take a look at the parts we have. So this looks like the body of Wendell Lee, and this looks like the body of Donovan. As you can see, these are clean sculpts. There's not a lot of flashing on them. There's not a lot of cleanup you're going to have to do. They're very, very good looking models. Not a lot of problems there that are going to require work. We've also got what looks to be the start of legs for someone. I'm going to bet those are probably Bloody Bill Anderson's legs. Then we've got arms for various folks. We've got Unger's head and the start of his groin. We've got hats, arms, and various other parts. Though that looks like Bloody Bill Anderson's torso, which makes me think that those set of legs we found earlier are Bill Anderson's. We've got the body and the bodies of Ross Mackay and Annabelle Hamilton, the boss of the Posse. We've got Donovan's energy whips, and it looks like an arm. We've got Unger's legs, and what appears to be a giant cannon. Well, a leg, an arm, and a cannon, I think. We'll have to take a closer look at these once we start putting them together. So that looks like those look like an arm, a hand, and a leg as I get a closer look at them. We've got these look like Bill Anderson's sword arm, or it's Ross Mackay's sword arm, I can't tell. And then we've got Donovan's clubs. And finally we have Unger's other leg, what appears to be half of a claw, and then an ammo feed for a giant cannon. And that is what is in the box for the Dixie Resurrection Posse. Now let's take a little closer look at some of the cards and see what we've got in here so that you can take a look and see who these people are. Now, like we usually do, we'll put together a longer video where you can see the cards up close and personal after this. And in a couple of weeks, we'll have an article about who these people are and what they do. So here is the Dixie Resurrection theme Posse. You can take this in an Enlightened faction. Annabelle Hamilton is the only boss for this posse. If you have at least 4 slots filled in this posse, the entire posse gains the Confederate trait. And we'll take a look at that when we get there in a minute. So, as you can see, your boss slot is Annabelle Hamilton. Slot 1 is Ross Mackay and or an enlightened unit with a creation rule. Slot 2 is an enlightened face or an enlightened hands unit. Slot 3 is an enlightened face or up to 2 enlightened construct hand units. Slot 4 is up to 2 enlightened face or enlightened construct hand units. 5 is Ben Hamilton and or an enlightened constructed hands unit. 6 is an outlaw Confederate unit and or an outlaw mercenary support unit, which means this posse actually sort of blends the outlaws and the enlightened together a little bit, because you can sort of mix and match and grab people from other factions with it. Now we've also got the generic enlightened posse, which you can see right there. I'm not going to go through the various parts of it, although, like I said, the generic posse is always going to have options for what you can add into it, but if you grab one of the theme posses, what you're going to end up doing is getting a lot more options and choices for what your guys are going to do. Now then, here's our boss, Annabelle Hamilton. Fortune 3, 230 points. Quickness 5, limit 3, mind 7, aim 6, grit 6, fight 6. Pretty standard for a boss. A little smarter than some of the others, but since she's an enlightened, it makes sense. She has the boss, enlightened, human, female, Confederate, and tainted traits. She has thermite grenades, which are going to be awful to run into in a dark alley. She's got a mouse gun. And then she's got a hammer hand melee weapon. On the back, she also has her traits. She's got Carpathogen, which lets you do all sorts of crazy things with construct models. She's got Portal Mastery, which means that she can manipulate portals for free actions instead of the various other things that do it. She's got Rebel Yell, which is a special combat action. Has been made by this unit. Any other units with the human and Confederate trait gain +1 to their limit attribute for the duration of this turn while within 8 inches of this unit. This is why the Posse ability is very cool, because if she's playing with things that don't necessarily normally have the Confederate trait, she gives them that trait and then lets them do handy things with it. Rabble Rouser, this unit's army may include an additional Angry Mob strategic unit for the appropriate point cost. And she's got Tactical Brilliance, which she gains +1 to reserve checks using the Mind attribute. Once per turn when activated, she may spend 2 action points to look at the top 3 cards from either Adventure deck or the Action deck and shuffle them in any order and replace them at the top. Now, that's pretty handy. Now, Carpathogen, which we've got now that we're taking a second, basically, once per turn when a construct, face, hands, or support unit is destroyed within 6 inches of the unit, immediately before taint checks are made, D5 of the construct models from the destroyed unit are returned to the play area within 3 inches of the unit. Any model that cannot be placed does not return and is removed from play. The returned construct units count as having activated for the turn, and they have the reanimated rule. The Carpathogen rule cannot be used against the unit that has been removed from play due to yellow checks. So if they run off, they're gone. But if they've been killed, you can bring them back to life, which is very handy. It's something you sort of see with some of the other Carpathogens. Now, who else have we got in here? We've got Ross Mackay. Ross is 150 points. He's got a fortune of his own. He is unique. He has face, outlaws, enlightened, human, male, captain, and Confederate. He's got an officer saber, the chase rifle, and chase pistols. So he's got 2 different ways to engage at a distance, and he's got a close combat weapon. For special rules, he has report, which means that this unit's army may include an additional civilian strategic asset unit for the regular point cost. Furthermore, once per activation, the unit may reroll a single failed check if the unit was within 12 inches of any civilians, which is kind of handy because it gives you another way to not have to spend your fortune chips. He's got for the ladies. Any model in the unit may add +1 to their grit, fight, and mind if they are within 3 inches of a female human model. So Ross is going to want to hang out with Annabelle. He also has the Rebel Yell special ability. And then he has Sikkim, which this unit's posse may include a unit of canine automata for the appropriate point cost. They are considered to occupy the same posse slot as this unit, and the unit of canine automata within 3 inches of this model may gain the teamwork special rule, so they can chain activate. For 1 action point, this unit may nominate an enemy unit within 18 inches. The weapons of any friendly canine can focus for free to shoot and strike actions against the target, which means you can take either canine bite dogs or you can take gun dogs. Ross is actually kind of a cool character. Hang on for 2 seconds. Let's grab a... then we've got our good friend Unger. Now, Unger is Face, Enlightened, Construct, Male, Tainted. He has a limit of 2, Quickness of 5, Mind 3, Fight 5, Grit 6, Aim 5. He's got a fail-safe implant, he's got a servo claw, and he's got a juiced Gatling gun. Now, for his traits... Unger has Creation, which the unit may spend an additional action point to double its piercing value in a single strike action. Unless hit by a weapon of piercing of -4 or greater, the unit can ignore the first point of piercing from an attack. So it treats piercing -3 as -2s, for example. It also has failsafe detonation. Should the unit use a weapon with suicide quality, it automatically passes any aim checks against its initial target. So when he decides to blow himself up, he automatically hits that target. We've got Wendell Lee, who is Face, Enlightened, Outlaw, Human, Male, Doctor, Confederate, Tainted. He also has 1 fortune. He costs 145 points. Limit of 3, Quickness 5, Mind 6, Aim 4, Grit 5, Fight 5. He's got Thermite Grenades, which makes him the second character in the group that has that. And he's got a Filleting Blade. And he has the following traits. Sawbones. Any friendly unit within, excluding this unit himself within 3 inches, gain the tough common rule. Sawbones has no effect on machine, artifact, or structure units. He has Enervate, which for 1 action point, he may select an enemy unit in line of sight within 12 inches. Target unit must make a bind check. If the check is passed, nothing happens. If the check fails, the selected unit immediately loses D5 fortune chips. So basically, he can suck away the fortune of your enemy bosses, or he can strip fortune off of lone characters that have it. He also has Compel, which for 2 action points, this unit may select a target unit, friend or foe, at 8 inches. If the target unit must make a mind check. If the check is passed, nothing happens. If the check fails, the selected unit is compelled and must immediately make an action of this unit's choice. It counts as a free action, it cannot be focused, or use fortune for the duration of the action. The compelled unit counts as a friendly unit, so he can actually mind control other characters for a single action during his turn. It's kind of a handy ability for this posse. We've got Bloody Bill Anderson. And Bloody Bill has Face, Enlightened, Outlaw, Construct, Male, Sergeant, Confederate, Mercenary, and Tainted. He's got 1 fortune of his own. He costs 130 points. Quickness 5, Mind 4, Limit 3, Fight 7, Grit 5, Aim 5. He also has a failsafe implant. He's got the Ketchum Grenade. He's got Juiced Pistols. And he's got Fell Blades. So he's got a whole host of ways to handle a problem up close. For Bill's traits, he has Murderous. While engaged, each successful fighter aim check with a weapon on another engaged unit causes a further automatic hit of the same unit. Automatic hits like these from qualities like Brutal cannot generate additional hits from the Murderous rule. He's got Combat Master, which means he can take a second strike action and activation for 1 point rather than the usual 2. If he wants to take a third or fourth combat action, they still cost the normal action point cost. He's got Rapid, which means he can focus move actions for no additional cost. And then he's got the failsafe detonator just like Unger does. So if he decides to go up, he's going to go up big. Finally, we have Donovan. Donovan is Face, Enlightened, Construct, Male, Tainted. He costs 110 points. He has a Limit 3, Quickness 5, Mind 4, Fight 6, Grit 6, Aim 4. He's got the failsafe implant, and he's got electro batons. And for traits, Donovan has Galvanic, which means the stun and disrupt qualities do not cause attribute penalties to be suffered by this unit, though they still gain the condition. He also has Combat Master, so he can take a second strike action for 1 action point. He's got Shield Aura, which means at the start of the unit's activation, you may spend 1 action point to gain +1 grit for the remainder of the turn. And he also has a failsafe detonator. So this is the Dixie Resurrection Posse. It's an interesting Posse set. It's got a lot of potential options and interesting things that you can do with it. It looks like it's going to do a lot of creative things on the table. We'll put together an article about how they play and what all the special rules do in conjunction with each other, and that should be going up in a couple of weeks. If you like what we do, go ahead and like it. Give the video a like. If you really like what we do, you can subscribe for more content like this. We'll be back with another one of these in a couple of weeks. We'll see you guys then. Game on, game fans.